Hello again. First, I would like to thank all those who've commented, subscribed, or become friends. It's the first time in 30 years I have not felt I was banging my head against a brick wall. I'm quite incapable of manipulating people or circumstances to my own ends. To a certain extent, I'm handicapped. Every step in my career has happened by chance. From time to time, a window of opportunity has opened, and I have either stepped through or passed it by, depending on the circumstances of the moment. Initial contact with heroin addicts in 1966 was a perfect example. It was the custom at home to watch the early evening news on television. On Sundays, the news was followed by a God slot. In our family, Christian values were practiced rather than preached. There was no interest in religious programs, and the television was abruptly turned off. But in those days, television sets used valves rather than transistors, so that the set took a while to warm up and then a while to cool down again. One Sunday in November 1966, as I turned off the box, I heard, as the sound was fading, "Drug addicts in." I turned the television on again, and here was a woman talking about her social work amongst heroin addicts in Soho. At the end of the program, she sought volunteers to help. I sensed an interesting opportunity and wrote to her. She replied so quickly that the following Saturday I found myself being shown round folk clubs in Soho. Within a couple of weeks I had been introduced to my first heroin addict by a researcher at the Home Office in her own home. I had gone to the Home Office to outline my ideas and discuss them with the Deputy Chief Inspector, who was acquainted with all the chronic addicts in London. There were, after all, only a few hundred in the early 60s. I paid a similar visit to the Department of Health, but found it staffed by indolent clinical dropouts with a hidden agenda. And that was how I became involved with the drug scene. Heroin addicts can be very demanding, desperate and dishonest, casting aside all moral values to obtain the next fix. By then I was junior partner in a National Health Service practice in Fulham. To avoid causing my partners unnecessary aggravation, I arranged to see my new addict patients at St Anne's Church Hall in Soho. I took only 10 patients to avoid being overwhelmed, chatted to them once a week, and then prescribed their needs for heroin and cocaine by means of 7 daily post-dated National Health Service prescriptions. In those days there was no black market, and heroin addicts were prescribed pure heroin and pure cocaine. The post-dated National Health Service prescriptions meant that they did not have to steal to finance their habits, and did not run out halfway through the week, as would have happened with weekly prescriptions. The bureaucracy of the health service was as mean, greedy and self-centered then as it is today, so I was never paid. Addicts were one of 2 types. A few were lads from the poorer parts of the East End who'd become addicted while experimenting. They lacked insight, self-discipline and education, and I saw little possibility of ever curing them. The others were highly intelligent with undeveloped talent. Many had been on Aldermaston marches organised by the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament, or CND. Having worked on the military front line of the Cold War, I saw the nuclear standoff as political posturing with little real chance of nuclear war. Younger people were less sanguine. Teenage youth is already beset by the nail-biting anxieties associated with learning to be men, acquiring a skill, getting a job, finding a wife, buying a house, raising a family, and generally making their way in the world. In addition, many of the post-war generation were also deeply concerned about nuclear annihilation and felt their very existence threatened. The world was making them feel totally overwhelmed and impotent. This exacerbated their profound sense of insecurity. Heroin had been freely available on these marches from what was known in those days as the grey market. Being spirited, inquisitive, and adventurous, a number had first used it out of natural curiosity and then become hooked. I talked earlier about the effects of insecurity on the body, intellect, and mind, and my quest to understand the causes more clearly. With heroin addicts, I reasoned that since heroin is the ultimate sedative and produced a feeling of security, then in order to experiment with it so often as to become addicted, there must be a profound underlying sense of insecurity. It was therefore no use attempting withdrawal until those underlying anxieties were identified and resolved. Recognizing that none of my patients were willing to come off drugs immediately, I saw them on condition that they at least thought about withdrawal. The aim of my treatment was to encourage and promote insight into their situation. I then hoped a point would come when a decision was made to stop using. This approach was widely appreciated by the addict community, which by that time numbered 2,000, an increase of some 250% in only a couple of years. To hear them talking about him, you would think he was John the Baptist, a drug squad officer was once reported to have observed. But such was the hysteria of the times and lack of cooperation by authority that my approach could not be sustained. Now there are reported to be 400,000 addicts, costing the taxpayer £15 billion a year. Popularity with heroin addicts brought me into contact with other groups beyond the drug scene. I became an assistant at the University of London Student Health Service. I was asked by the Albany Trust to join them when they went to Westminster to lobby for a change in the law regarding homosexuality. American refugees from the Vietnam draft also asked me to join them on a lobbying mission. I was invited to meetings of the National Council for Civil Liberties. It was at one of those meetings that I signed the famous Times advertisement calling for the legalization of cannabis. Here is a copy I had framed. More next time. Bye.